tātou katoa, nau mai ki tēnei hui motuhake o tātou o te kaunihira o te hiko o tika o te taurua mano rua te kaumāono. It's great to be in Chambers for our first formal council meeting of the year. It's an extraordinary meeting because these are extraordinary times. I just want to acknowledge you all who are here today and those online. And know we've got a few things to get through, but as it is our first meeting, I do just want to take the time to acknowledge the significant year that we've had already, at least of all the weather events that have hit not just us here in the far north, but councils and communities all the way along the coast, acknowledging as well those who had passed away in Tauranga Moana. E te atua hoatu ki a rātou te oki o ki ngā tonutanga kia whiti ki a rātou te māramatanga mutunga kore. Eternal rest grant upon them, O Lord, and may perpetual light shine upon them always. Amen. I will give our council prayer to open our proceedings today. E te atua, ka tuku mātou kia kaha mai ngā māngai, ko whiriwhirihia mō te kaunihira o te hiko o tika ki te mahi me te ngākau auaha, me te whakamahi i ngā pūkenga me te mātauranga I roto I ngā wānanga me ngā whakataunga, kia whakature ai te tahi hapori e mata tika ana, e tūkotahi ana kamutu ka I te oranga o tō tātou rohe, ko whakatau anu I ngā take o te rohe I runga I te tika me te pono. Lord, we ask that through council discussions and decisions, the representatives we have elected may govern the Far North District with imagination, skill and wisdom to achieve a fairer and more united community that enhances the well-being of our district and solves the district's problems efficiently and effectively. Just by way of apologies, I will submit apologies for Councillor Court and Councillor Balki, who is our Regional Transport Committee representatives at Whangarei for an important colleague there on our behalf. I will also add to that our Community Board Chairs, Jesse McVeigh and Bill Shinsky, if I could get a second. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Lucic. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed, abstentions. That's carried. Just by way of a few mayoral announcements. Of course, we've had a significant Waitangi Week commemorating the 166th year since the signing of Te Tiriti o Waitangi here in our very own district. And it was a significant week hosting the nation up here. And over the coming months, actually, we as the Far North District Council are going to be able to share more about what those opportunities we had with key stakeholders with central government actually mean for us, because it was a very meaningful and purposeful week, but just acknowledging everybody who came together to make that event worthwhile, and also acknowledging all of our councillors and community board members who were present to represent the Far North District over that week as well. We have up and coming our Mangungu Day, so commemorating the signing of Te Tiriti o Waitangi in Mangungu Hokianga, the largest signing that took place in Aotearoa. This Thursday, the 12th of February, over at Mangungu, no mai haere mai. I'm also acknowledging Miss Amber Wihungi, one of our GGs, our governance girls, who has stood in while we had maternity leave for some of our members. Miss Amber, I believe this is your last council meeting in the hot seat. On behalf of all of us, we thank you. We apologise for what we put you through, but we are very excited that we're not losing you to our organisation and that you'll be moving across to help out with our corporate services group. So all the best with your new role, and thank you for your money. And with that, we also welcome the return of Miss Imri Dunn to the GGs, and are looking forward to working with her in the hot seat and meetings to come. We today have a number of items on the table, and it's an extraordinary meeting because they are time dependent, especially around reform. Now, one of the other reforms that requires a submission is the Simplifying Local Government proposal that central government have put up. Those submissions close on the 20th of February, and you may have seen in the media and across our own council comms that we as the Northern Mayoral Forum have been working on this with Minister Watts himself. We as Northern councils will be looking at this, and you'll also see today that Kaipara Council is looking at possibilities around North Rodney. These submissions are due on the 20th of February. Our submissions go to our new Te Kupepa Committee for Strategy, Policy and Regulation, which is chaired by Councillor Kelly Stratford, with Councillor Anne Court as the deputy. So you'll be able to tune in to there to see our actual submission and what we'll be submitting. It's not on today's council agenda. Finally, if you're feeling some nice energy, that's because it is a high energy phase today, and my maramataka is Tangaroa Arofu. So let's see if we can break some records with how quick we can get through this council meeting today. And with that, we will jump into our agenda proper, and we'll go to page 6, item 5.1, the draft triennial agreement for 2025 to 2028. If I could get a mover, please. Thank you, Councillor Stratford. I'm happy to second. I will look up to see if there's any further commentary from Group Manager Eckers.
For the chair, just so everyone's aware, I've got Farley online. She's from North Regional Council. She's been coordinating the triennial agreement. So she's listening in here to give any input on any procedural matters that might come about as a result of today's.
Thank you. I'll pass to Councillor Stratford, and then I will pass over to Councillor Smulders, who has a few amendments.
Just want to acknowledge how live staff have had to be working across four different councils to get this triennial agreement together, and I feel like as an elected member, I've been able to feed into it, at our workshops that we've had more than ever before. So, yeah, and as a representative of our district, it is representative of the majority of the views of constituents.
Councillor, I've got Councillor Foy and Councillor Vucic, but are you just wanting to speak to the item in whole, Councillor Foy? Councillor Smulders has a number of amendments to propose. Should we go to her first, and then I'll put you in the speaking. Councillor Smulders.
Sure, thank you, Mayor Moko. I just want to begin by saying that I understand that this agreement is required under the Local Government Act. I'm not questioning the need for councils in Northland to have a triennial agreement. The cooperation between councils was sensible and necessary. In plain English, this document asks us to sign up to a regional framework that sets out how the four councils will work together, coordinate policy, share information, run regional forums, and align positions with central government, manage disputes, and collaborate on major reforms, including water services. It formalises structures such as the Mayoral Forum, the Chief Executives Forum, regional committees, and joint governance arrangements. It also includes sections on local government reform, water reform, and planning coordination. Staff have recommended that we approve this agreement and authorise the Mayor and Chief Executive to sign it. We are told it's legally required, of no significance, and has no financial impact and carries no downside. In effect, we are being asked to treat this as a procedural matter. I do not agree that this is low significance. Governance frameworks are never low significance. They shape how power is exercised, how decisions are made, and who influences them. They set precedents that last well beyond a single term, and when these frameworks are in place, once they're in place, they're very difficult to unwind. So I just have two small key concerns that I'd like to put forward. The first one is on the emphasis of consensus and speaking with a united voice. This agreement commits council to endeavour to reach consensus and present aligned positions. So when cooperation is valuable, there is a real risk that shifts meaningful debate away from public meetings and into closed regional forums. at risk creating pressure to fall into line before issues are openly discussed. Ratepayers elected us to debate in public, to challenge ideas and to represent local interests, not to pre-agree positions elsewhere. And I think this is important because remember that we are in an agreement with Whangarei District Council, which is a lot bigger than us, more assets, bigger population, Northern Regional Council. So my first amendment, Amber, is it okay if you set that up now so that we can read that along at the same time? Harley, are you able to shoot to that? The second concern is the way the agreement includes formalised relationships for leadership forums and joint governance bodies that are embedded into regional decision making. Now, while these forums are described as advisory, over time they become influential in shaping priorities, funding decisions and strategic direction. That influence is not subject to the same transparency or electoral accountability as this council. So it's not about stopping cooperation, it's about making sure cooperation remains accountable, and it matters because it's not just a procedural tick. We need to have stronger safeguards in. I want to continue to advocate for transparent, accountable and locally grounded governance on behalf of the communities I represent. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you please show the second amendment? Our members will receive this by email as well. I'll need a seconder for these amendments so that we can put them on the table for debate.
I'll second it for debate.
Thank you. Then we'll go to you and then we'll go to Councillor Boyd.
So this is the amendment. I've got other comments to make on whatever the motion with the motion. I don't see anything. I heard what the Peter said. I don't see anything there that we shouldn't be doing. I'm not sure I'm for or against at the moment, and I just do wonder whether the document has it missing. Maybe Davina can answer that. But I do agree that, as it says on page, 18, for the avoidance of doubt, while the mayoral forum provides opportunities for the fair and the mayor to provide regional, particular regional, nothing actually in the document. There's no authority for making decisions or committing council resources. So, just do wonder whether that covers. So it's just questions that I'd actually have at the moment. But this is just looking at, I know Davina sent it out.
Can I just go to Roger? Roger, in the timing for the triennial agreement, all four Northern councils have to sign this off at our respective meetings before we can all sign the actual document and submit it to central government to let them know that we have met our statutory obligation. Are we first cab off the rank?
No, I think FNDC and Northern Regional Council have already approved this. KDC are in the process of approving this.
If we have amendments at this point in time, at this meeting, are the amendments being proposed within the delegations of the mayors and chair of the other councils to include in the final, or will our cousin councils be required to hold extraordinary meetings to consider our proposed amendments?
Yeah, it's with
the reason being is that but just for my own consideration, for my vote, while I see the merits in there, to me it feels like it's saying written form what is an understanding of how we operate in any case. So I just need consideration.
Councillor Small, I think everything that you're proposing here is implicit in the document and the structure. And this is not at all a trivial or process-driven thing. This is a foundational document for the start of the new triennial. In terms of your second amendment, any assumption that there's any predetermination from advisory groups or other groups that are set up is just not there. These advisory groups operate under terms of reference. So all those issues that are of concern to you are covered, I think, in the structure that we have. There's been significant work, once again, going into this. This has been months in the making. And I think there's nothing substantive in those amendments that would materially change the effect of the agreement. However, I think it will disrupt the process of all the councils in terms of getting this thing approved. Is that a fair comment, Roger?
Yeah, that's a fair comment. And just to reply to the questions I've asked, these changes don't feel like they are significant to warrant go back to each council for an approval. And the question would be, this is my view, is they could be signed off by the mayor, mayor and chair, so the CEO, sorry. And
if another councillor had proposed these, you'd be comfortable that I would have the authority to sign off those changes without bringing it back to full council?
Yeah. It would be a question, and Kyle and I talked about this yesterday, just on whether we think it's it would be appropriate to just make a minor amendment and have the CEO sign off on this. If it's going to go back to each council, that's a whole level of administration needs to be done across the other councils in a short period of time to get it reapproved. So I don't know if Kyla's online, if she's got any observations.
Sure, Kyla, who I believe is been online for Northern Regional Council. Great to have you virtually at our council meeting.
Kia ora, good morning. My name is Kyla Carlier. I'm the Corporate Strategy Manager here at Northland Regional Council. Just from our perspective, our Chair has delegated authority to approve any non-material corrections. So in this instance, whether the changes are non-material or not would need to be discussed.
Something that puts it back there, is it material or not? Looking at it at face value, I think they're just more clarification statements. What's put forward in the training agreement, there's very little delegated authority given out to these groups. They do operate in terms of references. Those are viewed. And it's changing. There's things going on right now because the reform process is pushing us down to relook at these groups being set up. Things like North of What Together is always under reconsideration. My feeling is it's not material. Legal opinion on it, though.
Thank you for that. I'm going to go to Councillor Foy.
Kia ora. Just checking my audio. Can you hear me fine?
Fine.
My concern wasn't about the amendment. I think that the local government sets it out really clearly that the delegation of council is just that. That only council can make those decisions or any delegations to our CEO. So in my view, I think the amendments just reflect things that the law already allows. So I agree that it's non-material. In terms of something that is material that I did want to raise that wasn't in the triennial agreement. If you go to the local waters down well section, number 6, my understanding is that we were going to also look at managing our land drainage districts together and look at a catchment boards approach, because the regional council had required that all of the catchments would require resource consent. So all of the 3 councils were having to pay for these expensive consents instead of working together with the regional council to make it a permitted activity and only certain things needing resource consents that are outside of certain criteria. So that wasn't actually in here, and I was surprised to not see that, given that we've already met with the 3 councils, the CEOs were aware of it, and it's been a frustration for a number of years. In terms of an amendment to address that, can I ask our CEO to respond?
Can I just recount my recollection from our workshop on this? Was that was absolutely captured and is a priority, but then we started to add on other regional priorities, and staff at the time had suggested Regional Leadership C, our strategic planning workshops, I think it was, captured the intent of being able to do that, and that our CE would continue those discussions. That's my recollection of why we're not seeing it as a standalone, but it'll be great to hear some stuff directly. Thanks, Councillor.
Through you, Kahika, I don't see that topic as being relevant for this document, but it's absolutely on the agenda for discussion and to be incorporated into the local what's done well discussion, and has been tabled as such.
Just like having a single BCA, which is allowable, is another opportunity that doesn't have a line item in this per se, but it's one that we are exploring. Having a single regional library service across the 3 districts. There are a number of ones that were there, but we didn't put them in as specific line items because this was a more bigger picture overarching. But I'm happy to take a further amendment or foreshadowed amendment if you'd like to see changes. We'll go back to that conversation around what's material or immaterial, though, would be Councillor Point.
No, I don't have any other matters to address. I think the key is that in terms of the proposed motion from Councillor Smulders, I don't see that it's necessary to update the document because the statute already allows for that. And in my view, I don't think it adds to any of the material outcomes that would happen between our council. In fact, hearing from central government, they really welcomed our councils all working together and in terms of what we need to do, but any delegations remain with council and that hasn't changed. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Foy. Just quickly, and I'm getting a growling by note here, we are debating the amendment on the table, but the fortune of our council and me is that I am the chair of the Northland Mayoral Forum and set our agendas there. So me and you can have a side conversation about getting that specifically on one of the agendas so that you're comfortable that it is a priority, even if it's not reflected by words in this agreement. Councillor Stratford, speaking to the amendment, please.
In the same thinking as Councillor Foy, that what's been raised, if it's not in the Tronium agreement, like there's a couple of statements in the agreement about decision making by the Mayoral Forum and actually John already said it all. And then the Local Government Act covers all the points that Councillor Smulders has raised. Councillors remain free to disagree. Decisions stay public. Regional forums can't override local voices. United voice does not become enforced conformity. I do want to acknowledge, though, that there are a couple of committees, Northland CDM Group and the Regional Transport Committee. They are formed under legislation and have a little bit more detail to them in their separate acts. But we're unable to commit budget to those sitting at that table. We have to come back to this table to commit any budget to those work streams. So I can't support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll speak against the amendment as well. We have a lot of work to get through, and if we are going to have amendments every single paper over trivial items, then it's going to be a very long year indeed. I don't think that we need to have, for the sake of having it in there, things that are already implicit. It's safeguards for safeguards' sake or words for words' sake. I trust our staff and their expertise in the way that they shape these things. that ultimately get signed off at a central government level as well. So the safeguards are already in existence. So I don't want to waste time this year with a million amendments just for amendment's sake. Now, members have the right to put amendments across the table. That is their right. But I'm probably going to have to school myself up on our standing orders and run our meetings a lot more stricter, just so that we can get through things. We're lucky this is an extraordinary with only a few items on this table, but we are going to have significant workloads across council and our committees. This is one that I cannot support today because it doesn't need support. That's 3 speakers against, so I'll ask for a speaker for, otherwise I will go to a right reply.
Through the chair, I'm struggling to understand why we are debating this item if members are being told it cannot be amended. If changes are no longer possible, then this is not a decision-making item, it's simply a report back. We are elected to govern, not rubber stamp. So with respect.
Point of order. No one said that we can't change. We can change anything. We have the authority to. What members have said is that we don't need to. So don't put words into our mouths.
Can staff please point me to exactly where the concerns have been incorporated, and that if the safeguards already exist, then formalising them in writing should not be a problem, because good governance relies on clarity, not assumptions. So you use the word trust. If you're happy with what the essential safeguard is, then why can we not put it in there?
Point of order, this is a closing statement.
Member cannot ask questions.
Can you ask a question during your right of reply?
It's the members' opportunity to close the debate.
Procedural documents are exactly what shape, and that's why it matters. That's it.
Open for you to close your debate.
With my pleasure. I've asked for this morning for modest, reasonable safeguards. They are not about stopping cooperation, they're about making sure cooperation remains accountable. This is not about opposing regional collaboration. It is ensuring that we have our local council represented. That's why we deserve to have this procedural tick completed. I do not support the agreement in its current form. I would have supported it if it had the stronger safeguards in. I will continue to advocate for transparent, accountable and local governance for the behalf of the communities that I represent. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put it to the vote, the amendment to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed? Opposed.
Aye.
Opposed.
Opposed.
I was about 30.
The amendment failed. We go back to the... So it was moved originally by Councillor Stratford, who has spoken to that, seconded by myself. I will now open it up for debate on the document overall. Councillor Research.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually agree with this document, but I do have one concern. I'm just noting it here. Yeah, I think actually it might be. I think Councillor Stratford mentioned it. And that is, you have committees by statute, like regional transport committees, and others that we've actually set up as well. And I realise, as I've pointed out before, that there's no delegated authority to make decisions or commit council resources. So, but I don't want to see decisions being made that conflict, say, with the Regional Transport Committee. I raised this before this came up. As it stands, I'm pretty much happy with it. It becomes more of a procedural issue. And when I hear that the mayor is the chair, I'm pretty certain that he's aware of all of that. I think we have. I support it as it is.
Thank you, Councillor Research. Any other members? Councillor Stratford, write a reply. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed or abstentions? Opposed?
In favour.
That is carried. We'll now go to item 5.2, which is on page 24. That is the submission on the Planning and Natural Environment Bills. The recommendation is that Council approve the submission on the Planning Bill and Natural Environment Bill in attachment 1. If I could get a mover, please. Councillor Stratford and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Rudkin.
Can
I'll go back over to Roger. You're on the hot seat today, or hot stand today, mate. Any commentary further to our report itself?
That we went through a process of the workshop. Elected members was held, I think, last week, and a quick turnaround from the staff to take on board the feedback from that workshop. And put the submission out there to all the councillors and allow feedback to come back in on the submission. Did have a cut-off date before we get on the agenda, so anything that was left outstanding was left to be debated here.
Thank you. I'll pass to Councillor Stratford to open, and then we have amendments to consider for this as well.
I'll reserve my audio.
I'll come to Councillor Smulders, and members should have received. There are 7 amendments to consider as well. We'd like to move them all separately or all together?
Separately, please.
Separately. So we'll go to Amendment 1, explicit support for reform direction. Insert into the introduction, Far North District Council supports the government's objectives of replacing a more consistent and more efficient planning and environmental framework that enables housing and infrastructure delivery. Moved by Councillor Smulders. If I could get a seconder.
Second.
Statement. Before I continue, I just want to raise a point of process and governance. I ask that my time be paused while this is addressed, as this concerns the conduct of the chair and staff, not the substance of the submission. I was formally advised by staff.
I'll just get advice on pausing the time, understanding orders as requested.
So, understanding orders, it's around the debate, and so you have 10 minutes as the moment of debating motion. Unless council was to make a decision to suspend that particular standing order, it would apply.
10 minutes should be more than sufficient. I hear Mayor Morco's desire to race through. I advised my staff that my written input could not be incorporated because it was considered political or ideological, and that staff must remain neutral. I was told that the matters of principle and philosophy should be debated at the table, not through staff. I accepted this advice in good faith. Since then, I have seen other elected members' strong political and ideological positions reflected in these drafts. That creates a serious governance problem. So I am asking you as the chair to answer, do you support the position that elected members must be apolitical and neutral in tone, which is the exact words that I received in writing, for the views to be reflected in council submissions?
No elected members have a right to be political and to bring debate to the table. For the staff submissions, however, the submission must be that reflective of the council's adopted strategies, policies and vision, mission and values. Where elected members want to bring a different approach to that which this council already has formally resolved to have, any viewpoint other than that, then we bring it through this, which is what I've done previously. Like, for example, in the submission to the Local Electoral Act Māori Wards and Constituencies Amendment Bill, staff had prepared one which I thought was not strong enough in emphasis on what our council's values were. Therefore, we, in open debate, voted and included those political viewpoint into our council submission, which informed our council submission. So without knowing directly the go-between between yourself and staff, I acknowledge that staff, rightly so, their initial submission for us as a council submission should only reflect the values, the strategy, the policy, or the vision that this council has already formally adopted.
For the chair, so that's exactly correct. So the submission that the staff put together, the role of the staff is to put together as an apolitical submission as they possibly can, and reflect the adopted strategies and policies that the council has, and then also consider what the impacts would be on council operations as staff understand it. That's where it should end, staff. So there is nothing that's sent out that's directing any politicians to take an apolitical stance. Your opportunity is now in the debating chamber to add in your political lens and to influence and change any submission that goes that's approved by council. But staff will finish at that point.
Which is what we'll do right now with the 7 amendments.
You should be talking to the amendment 1, not the actual item.
The amendments will form a substantive motion, which then will open back up the speaking order for members to speak to the submission as a whole. Right now, we are considering Amendment 1 that was sent through, which is being moved by yourself, Councillor Smulders, and seconded by Councillor Stratford, and I have Councillor Foy in the speaking order to speak to this amendment as well.
The submission does not strongly defend lawful property use, regulatory certainty and proportionality. They are central to confidence and investment in our district. They should be core advocacy points. They are not. In practical terms, this means that a family wanting to build a second dwelling on their land, a farmer wanting to improve productivity, a small business wanting to expand, or whānau wanting to develop papakainga housing may face new layers of approval, uncertainty about rules and changing standards over time. For first-time buyers, this means fewer homes being built and higher prices. For iwi and hapu seeking to develop housing on their own whenua, it means delays, added costs and barriers that discourage development. When people cannot be confident about what they are allowed to do with their own land, investment slows and communities suffer. So therefore, we need to support the replacing of the RMA with a more clearer, more consistent and more efficient planning and environmental framework that enables housing and infrastructure delivery. Thank you.
Councillor Stratford.
The words up there I do support because they are stronger than what's in the staff submission.
Would it be in addition to or instead of the FNDC supports the overall hierarchical framework of goals, national direction, plans and consent decisions?
Inserted into the introduction in the addition.
Councillor, sorry, was that you?
Sorry, it's more affirmative, that's all.
You, Councillor Foy?
Memoko, in terms of the amendments, I'd just like to raise a point of order about the amendments all being separate. As chair, can we please move them all together? Because they all are similar in their issues that they raise, and essentially are supporting a reform of the Local Government Act. The Resource Management Act, and as per the previous discussion and debate, all that was saying is already what was reflected under the Local Government Act. We don't need to repeat all the words in the Local Government Act in all amendments to every single paper that we do. And just like this, we don't need to repeat the words from the proposed new legislation to support it as amendments. I think that it's cumbersome And I don't disagree with the words that are being used here, but in my view, it doesn't actually add anything material. For example, it's not saying something explicit to do with coastal hazards for our district or to do with land use planning. The words that are used here are a high level and generally address the central government direction that we support. So are we able to please move all the amendments together just to reflect that they are all generally consistent with high level support of the planning documents?
I would love to move those all together, but I'm going to look around the room.
Yes.
If there is a split, Councillor Stratford, you specifically asked for us to consider them separately. Is there one that you disagree with that you would like to be?
Yeah, Councillor Smulders is proposing to replace the detailed te tiriti and Māori engagement section, which I vehemently oppose.
Which amendment does that fall under?
Amendment 7.
So we've already had debate, but I'm going to reopen it because I don't want to go through this for every single one. And I appreciate what you've raised there, Councillor Forley, least of all that you have Masters of Planning with first class honours. But I'm going to, with Councillor Smulders' agreement as the mover and the one who's put these amendments up. Councillor Smulders, are you happy to speak to amendments 1 through to 6 as a whole? And I'll re-give you the movers 10 minutes to speak to the amendments that you've proposed as a whole. And then I'll pass back to Councillor Stratford to speak to those amendments, and then we'll do Amendment 7 separately. Or is there anything in these amendments that people are going to be split over, or is it just Amendment 7?
Happy to do Amendment 7 separately if that's...
I'll give you time back again to speak to 1 through to 6 as a whole.
Right.
As an opening statement to the amendments. Just to be fair to everyone that I have restarted the clock. So
Okay, thank you. The draft
sorry, I don't think you can see my hand. Amendment, so number 6 can't be together because it says that we're going to have an oversight of planning decisions, which the Act doesn't allow. So that's ultra vires. In my view, the Act doesn't allow for that. So can that be separate as well? Elected members don't decide on consenting decisions.
What number was that? Sorry, Felicity?
Amendment 6.
6.
So if you could speak to amendments 1 through to 5.
The draft largely accepts regulatory expansion as inevitable, but every extra layer raises costs, delays housing, and pressures our ratepayers. We should be advocating for simplicity and restraint. In practical terms, this means higher consultancy fees, longer consent time frames, more reports and more compliance checks before a single home is built. These costs are not absorbed by government. These are passed directly to renters, home buyers and families trying to build on ancestral land. For many first home buyers and papakainga developers, these extra costs can be difference between a project going ahead or being abandoned. Simpler rules allow for more homes to be built more quickly and at lower cost. And I believe that we all sitting here at the table want to have a nice, smooth, easier pathway. And these are practical ways of getting there. Thank you.
Councillor Stratford.
Yeah, I'm happy to support those. What are they? Insertions.
Councillor Floyd. Just check if you wanted to speak to amendments 1 through to 5.
Oh no, I don't have any issue with amendments. Again, I think it's just reiterating the common sense general support of the legislation. And I think our staff had already outlaid that in their submission, but for the sake of moving the amendments, I don't think it takes away from any of the submissions or changes it materially. I'll speak to the other Amendment 6 in the next debate. But yeah, I hope that instead of 4 more amendments, maybe we could just speak to it in general support, because I think that the reforms from both sides of the House in terms of central government are just there to make town planning more efficient and more effective, and also to move to longer term spatial planning as well, which all sides of the House agree with. So we welcome it.
I will speak and then pass to Councillor Harawira. Now, when good policy comes through, I will speak to good policy. When bad policy comes through the House, I will speak to bad policy. What I require, what the Far North requires from our staff who sit in these roles and actually have to apply what legislation or what central government policy means, they have a more inherent inkling and understanding, more than just emotive words or a feeling or a sense of what implications this has for the farm industry. I pride myself on being independent. So I'm not a government MP, I'm not an opposition MP. When I look at something that comes through and what the Far North District Council should be saying about that legislation. So I agree overall that we need resource management reform. In fact, I remember as a Hupenos councillor reading that for, was it the Randerson report? That was a door stopper for summer, hold the door open for the wind. So both sides of the House, we've needed resource management reform. But our job as Far North District Council elected members is to represent how legislation will affect this whare and then our Far North District Council residents beyond that. I appreciate, Roger, yourself and your team for the significant mahi that goes into a submission such as this, which rightfully so must also highlight the issues that legislation will have and the negative impacts that legislation will have on us as an organisation as the Far North District Council. Now, that does not mean that the Far North District Council is in opposition to the government. It means that Far North District Council is being the governance entity for our organisation and our people in highlighting how that will have an effect on us. So I just get nervous around amendments we have when taken one on one, right? That I don't want this council to be a council that's going to, whether it's a blue government, a red government, a yellow government, a black government, a red government, any coloured government, one that is always saying we are going to be supportive for reasons A, B, C and D. So I get nervous around amendments when I've read through this submission a number of times. I agree with the overall picture that it's giving here, that I don't want us to be, putting our staff's feet in it when they are very much aware of the realities of how legislation is then worked on the ground here in the Far North District Council. Wellington's Wellington, they sit down there and they make policy. It's our staff's job to interpret that on what that actually means for us. So for those reasons, I'm happy with the submission as it is. It's high level. Our staff know how things work on the ground. They know how this will impact us, and rightfully so, they've outlined the amendments that are appropriate to the legislation to make sure that we are not left behind as the Far North District Council. So I'm speaking against these amendments and those to come today, and would like us to sign off the submission as it is. I'll now go to Councillor Harawira.
Ai, kia ora tātou, ngā mihi. Kia ora, yeah, I'm really not in favour of the whole, all the councils working together, because I feel that it's, it's a response to a fast track thing to get rid of the NRC in our rohe. And this is a contingency plan to go ahead. So I just want to sort of put that one on the table, and I appreciate everything that all the mayors have done. But anyhow, I'll get to my point. Somebody else has had a lot of time. So, but I will support it in the notion that this is a patch up for what the central government has delivered to us. So I think all of the amendments 1 to 7 are highly loaded terms. They may look neutral to the ordinary person, but it depends on how you interpret. And as Councillor Smolder says, she's deliberating on a particular political platform. And please do not represent Hapu and iwi interests when you don't advocate for us in daily life. So, stick to your lane. So all of these terms are loaded terms. The words like, what's that?
I have a point of order. If you can state your point of order, Councillor.
Councillor Smoulders, she threw in a few statements there that we all meant to sit there and absorb, and the public can watch, and then we have no comeback. She threw in a few things there, so she wasn't being apolitical. Anyhow, my point is, the words in this.
I just need to hear the point of order. Kia aroha mai kia au I roto I tēnei tūranga hei kia mana, mena ka poina ora mai te tahi kia me hakarongo au. A koa taku kia kore hi rain.
25.2D.
Presentation of a statement made by a member or officer or council employee.
The member who is raising a point of order must state precisely what its subject is. Points of order can be raised for the following objections. 25.D, misrepresentation of any statement made by a member or by an officer or council employee. Hilda Harawira said that I do not represent Hapu or iwi, or I have no.
So she asked you not to represent Hapu or iwi is what I heard. I'll pass back over to Councillor Haukiad Harawira. I'll rule against that, but if members could take note to what they are saying and how they are saying it. As Chair, Councillor Haukiad Harawira, I'll let you wrap up your debate against these amendments. And you'll need to unmute. Councillor Haukiad Harawira will need you to unmute.
All right. Okay. All right. Right. So I agree with the kōrero by Councillor Foy that I don't believe these amendments are necessary. Also, a number of the terms that are repetitive. From 1 to 7 are loaded terms, depending on whomever. So words like proportionate, consistent, disciplined, meaningful engagement. There's no kōrero in any of this about meaningful engagement with Hapu and iwi, and another person's particular stance would be to leave Hapu and iwi out. So those are my points. Thank you.
Thank you. I haven't had any further requests to speak for amendments 1 through to 5, so I'll go back to Councillor Smulders for right of reply.
Ratepayers expect us to ask questions before we approve documents. They do not expect us to simply move things through. A few minutes of proper scrutiny can prevent years of problems later. This is a responsible use of time. With respect, Chair, I am entitled to speak to the item, and I intend to do so briefly and constructively. I'm concerned about the message this sends. Questioning process should not be discouraged. This is oversight, not obstruction.
I think you can now vote on amendments 1 through to 5. They've been moved by Councillor Smulders, seconded by Councillor Stratford. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against?
Against. Haukiat Harawira. Thank you.
Yeah. Radkin,
Against.
Haukiat Harawira and Joy. The amendments fail. Would you all like your names recorded for the vote? I will now go to Amendment 6, Democratic Accountability, moved by Councillor Smulders. I'll need a seconder. The amendment fails for lack of a seconder. I'll now go to Amendment 7, Practical Engagement, moved by Councillor Smulders. I will need a seconder. The amendment fails for lack of a seconder. As amendments 1 through to 5 failed, we now go back to the original motion, which is to approve the submission as it is. Now, can I just say, normally in a recommendation, we have one of those sign-off things where myself or the Chief Executive have the authority to do minor amendments to grammar and clauses as a part of the overall resolution. Because I have seen some spelling mistakes.
Yeah. Can we make, let's make sure it's in the draft resolution. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, I'm just.
And I'll just check it with our original mover and seconder, Councillor Stratford and Deputy Mayor Rudkin. You're happy to include in the motion the addition. Do you know the dotting your I, crossing your T thing that we usually have in these sorts of recommendations? I only just picked up on it now. Councillor Stratford, you'll wait for closing. I'll go to Deputy Mayor Rudkin. Any other members? Councillor Smulders.
Our staff are working under significant pressure and within tight time frames, and I respect that. My concerns are about the direction of the submission and the role of governance in setting that direction. It's not about anti-reform. I support the reform that delivers certainty, affordability, and better outcomes for our communities. What I am questioning is whether this submission is sufficiently ambitious in defending these outcomes. It is not about opposing engagement and partnership. It is about lived experience in the far north. It's about housing costs, slow consents, limited supply, delayed Papakāinga developments, pressure on families and business. These are real issues. They deserve strong advocacy. I want to be clear that I am speaking on behalf of the ratepayers, first home buyers, whānau, and small businesses who feel locked out by complexity and cost. They want a planning system that works. That is what I am advocating for. Thank you.
Any other members? We'll go to Councillor Stratford.
Thank you. Quickly acknowledge staff for the workshop. Oh, sorry, Felicity's got her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Floyd.
Just in terms of the submission and costs to ratepayers, I just wanted to acknowledge that the changes are likely to increase the cost to ratepayers in general, because it's moving away from user pays and having more strength in terms of permitted baseline enforceability. So there'll be more onus on local councils to have enforcement for permitted baseline activities, which will put more cost pressure on the ratepayer in general. But in terms of user pays, it will give more certainty in terms of the use of the land. Moving to spatial planning, I think that's consistent and works really well. But in terms of the submission that the staff have raised and our district in general, support for Papakāinga and whenua Māori development is really encouraged, and I think has come through as strong in our submission and should do as such. in terms of the planning itself, having the extra cost from the spatial, the GIS movement, and also the additional staff in our building department to do those planning checks at the time of the building consents will also cost ratepayers. So instead of the last part where user pays comes in, we'll be paying that up front in terms of our staff resource that we'll need to have on the ground to do these checks for permitted baseline activities. I just wanted to give that narrative there for people that may not understand how the movement of the planning framework is changing. And I disagree with the debate from Councillor Smulders that it won't cost ratepayers, because it will, but just in a different way. And we'll need to allow for that in terms of our general rates and in terms of our regulatory functions in that Department of Council. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll go to Councillor Stratford.
So one of the things that I was trying to add strength to was climate, and I just wanted to address the fact that that might be as a political view that I have. I want to remind elected members that back in 2020 we were deputised about a climate emergency, and we also had submissions for the long-term plan following that. The 2021 we implemented, we went on a journey to have the climate roadmap, and then an implementation plan from there. We've got, we've had more submissions for council to address, do something about the impacts of climate. So when I put my voice to strengthening something like, the reinforcing, addressing climate in a submission, it's not, whilst I might personally feel that, it's something that I hear time and time again, especially, during a storm event, that we need policy that government are making to reflect the demand for addressing climate. So I just wanted to put that in there. And also I want to acknowledge that there's been years of work on housing strategy, implementation plan. We've got so many studies that we have been able to, that staff have been able to garner facts, and we've sat around this table with ministers over my 8 years, and what they're doing with this legislation are addressing some of the things that we can't change in this organisation. They're changing, which will be great. They've heard our voices, and the work that staff have done on previous legislative reforms around the RMA hasn't gone to waste. Yeah. It's nothing new. It's not new, the stuff that's gone into the submission. So I enjoyed reading it. It reflects our, what's in a lot of our strategic documents. And I support the submission. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now put the vote. All those
opposed and have another turn?
No, that was the right of reply.
That's the right of reply.
The closing statement. She has moved a reserve to right to speak as the closing.
Just brought up new points, but I missed it.
We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Opposed.
In favour.
Recorded. That has passed. Before I go to item 6, which is to exclude the public, can I also just remind anyone on our live stream and members here that submissions are open to everyone to central government legislation, but you can all do your own individual submissions. The only thing you can't submit on is is our own policy, because that will exclude you from the debate and the vote at the table. But you are very welcome to put your personal views across, or your views for the roles that you carry. Just don't put across views on behalf of the Whānau District Council. That has to come across this table, but you're welcome to put in your own views to submissions, and many of you do. So I invite you to do so. And members of the public as well, if you've heard something today that you agreed or disagreed with, formally put it into writing and submit it through to central government. On page 42 now is the recommendation to approve. a single item, item 6.1, to PP for overall committee recommendations. The reason being the consideration for peaks is to see of individuals. Eventually, the names of those who have been appointed externally appointed to our committees will be released to the public, but for the consideration of us at this meeting. So that's been moved by Councillor Lusich, and I will second that. Any commentary? Put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye.
In favour.
That's carried. If we could please pause the live stream, Harley, and I will ask
Kia ora, just a partai. Can we ask that everybody who is in this hui, this public excluded hui,
Kia ora, it's whānau o Tiko Tika. Welcome back to our council meeting. In the public exclusion section, we considered item 6.1, Te Pipi Whararoa Committee recommendations for external appointments. We have resolved 3 external appointments, and that will be publicly shared out via council polls when we have done the relevant process checks that we need to do. Otherwise, thank you for all those tuning into our meeting. Thank you to elected members and the staff. And I'll close this off with karakia. Kia tau, kia tātou katoa, te atu whai o tō tātou ariki o he ukraiti, me te aroha o tātua, me te whiwhina tātou. Wairua tapu ake ake And if you could let us know when we're off the live.